Back to follow-up segment tonight. One of the biggest lies in the current presidential campaign is that tough criminal sentences have harmed America. In 1994, violent crime was out of control in this country. And if there had not been a federal crackdown, the Manhattan Institute estimates that 129,000 black Americans would be dead today. Crime has dropped to historic lows in the USA. But that fact does not seem to penetrate the Democratic Party.
We need to end the so-called war on drugs, which has resulted in a disproportionate number of African Americans being arrested.
Right now, African Americans and white kids use drugs at exactly the same level. Nobody knows that, exactly the same. But African American kids go to prison 6 times more because there's this idea that these guys are the drug dealers.
Now, for the record, that soundbite that blacks go to prison 6 times more than whites for drug offenses is false. With us now, Heather McDonald from the Manhattan Institute. First of all, let's deal with that Van Jones statement. Where do you get that?
Well, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and think that he was just confused in the heat of the moment because I don't know what he's talking about. The fact is, Bill, that no kid is going to prison for smoking a joint, and no adult is going to prison for smoking a joint. They have to work very hard to get sentenced to prison. The major conceit here is that somehow the drug war is responsible for our incarceration rates. That's just not the case. It's violent crime that is driving our prisons. And as you said, when we didn't have our incarceration rate that we do today, we had much higher levels of violent crime. And the primary beneficiaries of the drop in violent crime has been black, law-abiding inner-city residents.
All right, so you say 129,000 African Americans the country over who are alive today would be dead had not the federal government instituted tough sentencing on violent predators, mandatory sentences for if you commit 3 felonies, you have to go for a long period of time. If that did not happen, then it'd be 129,000 dead blacks that are still alive today, right?
Well, the federal crime bill was only one component of our crime drop. Frankly, what I think is more important is data-driven proactive policing. And that happened in '94 in New York City.
Yeah, that was part of the bill that had policing.
No, that came out of New York City, the whole CompStat idea of using data incredibly efficiently to target crime hotspots and asking officers to intervene in crime.
But that came with stop and frisk. Stop and frisk came with that.
That's part of it, exactly.
Right, and now stop and frisk is gone. Let's just go back to the drug offenders for a moment. So you're saying that the violent crime, those people are inhabiting the prisons much more so than the drug dealers.
There's less than 4% of people in prison, in state prisons, for possessing drugs.
All right.
Those have been
Obama, President Obama says if you deal, and we debated this top of the program, if you deal hard drugs, nonviolent. You shouldn't get a harsh sentence. You should get, rehab or whatever, assuming they're addicted. And I just think that you put the drug dealers back on the street, you don't punish them, the risk-reward goes way up. They make a lot of money. They only do a little time, right?
Well, again, in state prisons, there's only 12% of people in there for actually dealing drugs.
Only 12% in state prisons?
In state prisons.
And when federal?
50%, but that's only 13% total of our prison population.
So it's a much smaller sample in federal.
It's irrelevant.
So
Federal prisons are irrelevant.
In state prisons, only 12% are there for dealing drugs.
Trafficking, right.
So most of the people that have been incarcerated, and people of color at a higher percentage, all right, are people who are assaulting, murdering, raping other Americans.
54% of people in prison are there for violent crimes. And those people have very long criminal histories. Even people who are arrested for violent crime, 60% end up back on the streets. 3% of all violent felonies and property offenders end up in prison. 97% are not in prison.
Yeah, they give them time after time.
One
more question.
Time after time.
Whenever you hear this Bernie Sanders stuff and you don't hear what you just said. You never hear what you said. Why doesn't the media seek the other side of the story?
Racism sells. It is a powerful narrative that's put out there by the academy, by advocates.
What's the academy?
The universities, the criminology profession, and the whole university.
So there's an industry that's invested in saying America's a racist place, and they use the crime to bullshit that theory.
Those people should go to an inner city community meeting, police community meeting, and they will hear, we want more cops, we want more enforcement.
They don't care.
Okay, but the police are listening to the people in doing what they do.
Heather Mac Donald, everyone.